The curse of the bloodline remains a chilling tale of sacrifice, legacy, and the haunting consequences of a desperate pact. The night was unnaturally dark, the moon hidden behind dense, foreboding clouds. Deep within the Carpathian Mountains, Elias Vladislav knelt on cold stone, surrounded by ancient runes etched into the ground. His son, barely alive, lay limp in his arms. "Please," Elias whispered into the void. "I'll give anything to save him." A cold wind swept through the cavern, extinguishing the flickering torch. From the darkness emerged a shadowy figure, its form shifting like smoke, but its crimson eyes unwavering. "You summoned me for life," the figure said, its voice echoing like a chorus of whispers. "Yes," Elias replied, his desperation outweighing his fear. "I'll pay whatever price." The entity moved closer, its smoky tendrils wrapping around Elias and his son. "Your bloodline will serve me," it hissed. "You will prosper, but your descendants will bear the weight of my mark. Their lives will be mine to shape." Without hesitation, Elias nodded. A searing pain shot through his chest as the pact was sealed. The entity vanished, and Elias's son gasped for breath, alive. But Elias didn't know that his bargain had condemned generations of his family to lives of torment and despair. Adrian's arrival. Centuries later, the Vladislav bloodline had dwindled to just 2 surviving members. Adrian Vladislav, a struggling artist in Brooklyn, was one of them. He had long since distanced himself from his family, dismissing their talk of curses as superstition. But the letter changed everything. His grandfather, Emil Vladislav, had passed away, leaving Adrian as the sole heir to the family estate, a sprawling manor in the Romanian countryside. Adrian's mother begged him not to go. "That place is cursed," she said, her voice trembling. Adrian rolled his eyes. "It's just a house, Mom, and maybe I can sell it and finally pay my bills." Her warnings fell on deaf ears. 2 weeks later, Adrian stood at the gates of the Vladislav Manor, a towering Gothic structure perched atop a hill. The iron gates creaked as he pushed them open, and a chill ran down his spine. The manor was massive, its stone walls weathered by time. Gargoyles leered from the corners of the roof, and the windows seemed to watch him. As Adrian stepped inside, the air grew heavy. The interior was frozen in time. Dust blanketed the furniture, and cobwebs draped the chandeliers. Yet despite the disrepair, Adrian couldn't shake the feeling that the house was alive. The whispers. Adrian spent his first day exploring the manor. The study, with its towering bookshelves and ornate desk, caught his attention. While rummaging through the drawers, he found a leather-bound journal. It belonged to his grandfather, Emil, and its pages were filled with cryptic entries about the family curse. Adrian read about strange deaths, unexplained phenomena, and a shadowy figure that haunted their bloodline. "This has to be some kind of joke," Adrian muttered, but his unease grew. That night, as he lay in bed, the whispers began. Faint and indistinct, they seemed to come from the walls. At first, Adrian thought it was the wind, but the whispers grew louder, more distinct. "Adrian!" He shot upright, his heart racing. The room was empty, but the air felt charged. He told himself it was just his imagination. The haunting escalates. Over the next few days, strange events plagued Adrian. Shadows moved in the corners of his vision, furniture shifted positions, and doors opened and closed on their own. One night, he woke to find his bedroom door ajar. Stepping into the hallway, he saw muddy footprints leading down the stairs. Gripping a flashlight, he followed them to the dining room, where a figure stood at the far end of the table. The figure was tall and shrouded in darkness, its eyes glowing red. Adrian froze, unable to move. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure vanished, leaving only the lingering sense of being watched. Shaken, Adrian decided to delve deeper into the journal. Emil had written about a ritual chamber hidden beneath the manor, and an ancient dagger said to hold the key to breaking the curse. Elena's arrival. Just as Adrian contemplated leaving the manor, his cousin Elena arrived. She was sharp, determined, and deeply superstitious. "I came as soon as I heard," she said. "You shouldn't be here, Adrian. This place isn't safe." Adrian was relieved to have company, though Elena's fear was palpable. Together, they began piecing together their family's history. They learned about Elias Vladislav's pact with the shadowy entity and the generations of tragedy that followed. I always thought these stories were just family myths, Adrian admitted. They're not, Elena said grimly. The curse is real, and if we don't stop it, we're next. The ritual chamber. Adrian and Elena searched the manor for the hidden chamber. Days later, they found it behind a false wall in the basement. The air inside was icy, and the room was filled with strange symbols carved into the stone. At the center of the chamber was the dagger, a blade so dark it seemed to absorb light. "This is it," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The journal says this can end the curse, but the instructions were clear. To sever the pact, a blood sacrifice was required. The life of a family member had to be given willingly. The weight of the revelation hung heavy between them. The entity's wrath. The entity's attacks intensified. It appeared more frequently, no longer content to linger in the shadows. One night, it cornered Adrian in the study. "You cannot escape me," it hissed, its voice filling the room. "The bloodline is mine. Accept your fate or suffer." Adrian fought back, armed only with the knowledge from the journal. He recited incantations that seemed to weaken the entity, but it was clear they were running out of time. Elena, too, began to crack under the pressure. The entity whispered lies to her, sowing seeds of distrust. She began to suspect Adrian might sacrifice her to save himself. Their once strong bond started to fracture, leaving them isolated when they needed each other most. The ritual determined to end the curse. Adrian and Elena prepared for the ritual. They set up the altar in the chamber, lighting candles and arranging the dagger as described in the journal. As they began the incantations, the manor trembled. The walls cracked, and an otherworldly wind howled through the room. The entity appeared, its form towering and menacing. "You dare defy me?" it roared. The ritual reached its peak, and the entity lashed out, engulfing the room in darkness. Shadows wrapped around Adrian and Elena, pulling them apart. "Choose," the entity demanded. "Spill the blood of one, or the curse shall never end." The sacrifice. Adrian knew what had to be done. He grabbed the dagger and turned to Elena. "No," she cried, realizing his intent. "This ends with me," Adrian said firmly. Before Elena could stop him, Adrian plunged the dagger into his chest. His blood dripped onto the altar, and the chamber was filled with blinding light. The entity screamed, its form dissolving into nothingness. The shadows receded, and the oppressive weight that had clung to the manor lifted. Adrian collapsed, his life slipping away. Elena cradled him, tears streaming down her face. "You didn't have to do this," she whispered. Adrian smiled weakly. "Someone had to." With those final words, he was gone. Epilogue. The aftermath. Months later, Elena stood at the gates of the abandoned manor. The land was quiet, the air no longer heavy with darkness. She placed a bouquet of white lilies on Adrian's grave, marked by a simple stone. "I'll make sure no one forgets you," she said, her voice trembling. As she turned to leave, she felt a chill. For a moment, she thought she saw a shadow flicker in the corner of her eye. She paused, her heart racing, but there was nothing there. Perhaps the curse was truly broken, or perhaps it had merely shifted, waiting for another opportunity to strike. The curse of the bloodline remains a chilling tale of sacrifice, legacy, and the haunting consequences of a desperate pact.